Alright everybody, what's up? Nice to see everyone again. I don't see anybody here, but you know what I get, you know my gist. I'm Saxon, I'm your host. I work here at Apt Electronics, and today's presentation we're going to be talking about GoPro and action cameras. And I do apologize, I normally like to get here a few minutes earlier, get everything set up and get everybody on and then start. So we'll give it a few more minutes. I'll let some others join. Right now my class is empty for the day in person. This might be the last GoPro video that we end up doing here. You know, I'm waiting to hear some feedback from everybody else. But there's a few other options that we're thinking about considering for next month for the final class. You guys really love my intro to cameras. You love my intermediate cameras. The GoPro, though, I think we could kind of do without. So this might be the last one. Sorry to anyone who's really enjoyed these. They're very simple, straightforward. We'll talk about the basics of the GoPro, and we'll get started with that in just a little bit. I see I got a couple viewers that just jumped on here, so thanks to everybody. I'll be toggling back and forth between the slideshow and the full web presentation, so please let me know if anybody has any questions in the meantime. My chat box on the right side of my screen is always open. Even if you want to just say hello, I'll say hello back. But my name is Saxon here at Apt Electronics, and yeah, give it like 2 more minutes and we'll get started on GoPro and action cameras. Alright everybody, I gave it a few more minutes there. Let's get started with this and jump right in. So GoPro and action cameras, you know, we can talk about a lot of different stuff, and we have been talking about a lot of different stuff within the camera world as I've been teaching everybody for a few months now. GoPro action camera, who uses it, who wants it, and why would you want it? For those of you who you know, you're not necessarily a photographer, the photos that you do take are with your phone and you're more than happy with that, or you already have a camera set up and you're really happy with it and you don't have any issues, but maybe you're more of an outdoorsy person, you're adventurous, you're outgoing, and you'd like to also film when you're doing outdoors activities or even indoor activities, but maybe the phone, I mean, let's face it, a new iPhone costs about $1,000. It's a lot more expensive than carrying around a GoPro. Even some of these new modern mirrorless and DSLR cameras, to truly get good quality, you're looking at least $1,000 to $1,200 buy-in price for an intro level camera. You know, GoPros really help those who want to become content creators, want to start making videos, want to practice you know, exploring different shooting methods and action and sequence. They really can do that all with GoPro, and I think that it's a really unique thing with GoPro that not a lot of other brands, maybe other than the DJI and the Insta cameras, really can offer customers, just given the nature of their product. So let's jump into it a little more. So why use an action camera to start off? It's small and compact. It's a little square, I believe I have one with me now. I'll take it out as I'm talking. Portable. Super small, super portable. You can fit it in your pocket for the most part. I'm holding on to the Hero 10 Black Series. At the current moment for making this video, the 11 and then the 11 Mini just came out for the GoPro series. Excellent cameras, really good hyper smooth technology on there, and then they're a little bit faster as far as transferring and everything else is concerned. But they're super portable, they're easy to use, and we'll talk a little bit more about why I say they're super easy to use, but to give you a little bit of a synopsis, there's two buttons. High quality video and photos. I know that from the Hero, I believe 8 and onward, it's been able to shoot in 4K. The newer ones shoot all the way up to 5.3K if I'm not mistaken, and they have anywhere between 60 and 100 FPS. So it's pretty, not FPS, but refresh rate. 60 to 120 refresh rate. So overall, they have a really powerful design, and they're able to take really nice videos. And I think the other big sell on the GoPro is how durable they are. I've seen people who've had these on their handlebars who have went face first into the ground, handlebars flipped up in the air, gone, but the GoPro still lived and it survived, and it was still able to record with no cracks, no damages, no nothing. So if you're someone who's not the softest on your technology either, you're a rough individual, the GoPro might be a good option in that category as well too. So that's a synopsis, but now where do we go for help when we first get a GoPro? I love teaching these classes. Like I said in the beginning, there's a possibility we'll be stopping the GoPro and action cameras because it is my least viewed class. But overall, my videos, the videos that I've made previously are great help towards getting more into this. But I would say the biggest thing with learning any product is that you should always read the owner's manual first. Most new products aren't going to give you an owner's manual. They give you a QR code to scan, or they tell you to go on their website where then you can get printable directions on how to use. But it's their way of either saving paper or going eco. A lot of different ways that can go. But always read the owner's manual or find it online so you can familiarize yourself with it. YouTube is my second best. I mean, those who are on here today, thank you for watching. You're all on YouTube right now, so I hope you know where you're at. But YouTube's another great source where if you are someone who's new to this and you want to learn so much, you can watch my videos, you can watch somebody who maybe has worked for DJI, you can watch someone who uses this every single day and see their tips and tricks. The amount of people that you can see using these cameras nowadays is incredible. And the amount of people online who will teach you how to use them for free without any subscription service at all is incredible. Now let's say you are someone who enjoys the subscription services. You want to get the biggest bang for your buck as far as getting taught how to do things or work on different skills and videography and whatnot. Masterclass has been a great one that I've recommended to a lot of my customers. The dynamic of Masterclass has changed over the years, but it really broke out during the pandemic. Offered people who were trying to find new hobbies or become more skilled at something that they really loved, and now they had the time on their hands given the pandemic. The Masterclass really helped teach all that kind of stuff. So definitely could not recommend the Masterclass more if that's something that you're interested in or if that's something that you like. But yeah. So jumping into it, we should start off by saying that all GoPros have no internal storage. That goes for all cameras across the board. No matter what camera you buy, it could be the $2,000 EOS R5 from Canon, it could be one of the Z series cameras from Nikon, it could be a Sony Alpha. Does not matter, you have no storage in that camera. So you need to buy storage, and you need to be thinking about storage. The biggest things I might recommend when you're looking to get a SD card for your camera or for your GoPro is looking at something like the a micro SD card, or looking at always looking at a micro SD card, but looking for something that has a good read and write speed and anything that's 64 gigabytes or higher. Hi there. So we only got one viewer right now, so just so you know, we're doing GoPro today.
What?
GoPro cameras today.
GoPro?
Yeah, it's the little guy, the little video camera.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of those before.
Yeah, so nothing that's going to be pertaining to any DSLR or mirrorless cameras today. It's all about video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not into video, but that's okay. I
By
can learn
all
something.
means, if you want to sit, and then also my screen is not working today, so it's a lot of just me talking. I know.
Okay.
So I apologize. If you want to come on this side and sit a little closer, you'll be able to see everything from this angle because I have the video right here.
Okay.
That'll be the easiest way to see it. My apologies.
That's a bummer.
I know. We're getting. They did some revamping to my space where I normally record the videos, and there's a little cable that normally is hidden under one of the.
I'm gonna sit here. I don't want to get coffee all over me.
You are totally fine. As long as you can see the screen, that's all I care about.
Okay.
I just want you to be able to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. We have one person in class today. But yeah, they redid my room a little bit, and they got rid of my cable that plugs into the TV. So I got to ask them to bring that back next week. I just did not know. But right now, we're talking about storage in the GoPro. We're talking about what's available on this guy. At the current moment, all cameras, including GoPro, they do not offer any storage on there. So you got to purchase your own. The reason they do that is because of read and write speeds, and they want the customer to be as fully in control of how they're shooting and what they're shooting. So in the case of the GoPro, you want to at least be 64 gigabytes or higher is what I recommend to all my customers. You're recording video. Video takes up a lot of space depending on the frames per second that you're choosing, the quality of the video, whether that's 5K, 4K, or just a standard HD. The higher quality you go, the more of a refresh rate that you have with them. It's all going to add in and make the storage higher. So getting something that's at least 64 gigabytes is good. And then I always recommend looking at the read and write speed. You want to find an SD card that's fast. You don't want to buy just the cheapest one that they have. A lot of brands will offer a velocity or a speed or a fast SD card. SanDisk, Sony, ProMaster, they all offer different versions of it. If you're doing video, it's definitely important to look for something more like that, only because then you're protecting the speed of which the video is recording in. So when the video records, obviously any regular SD card will do it, but as you're watching, you might see some inconsistencies in the filming based on whatever speed you were using, and that's just because your SD card can't work with that. So that's one thing to be aware of when you're looking at.
So what kind of card should you get again? B64?
I would say 64 gigabytes or higher, and then anything with a high read and write speed. So usually on the bottom it'll tell you that it has a velocity of 30, or it'll say V30, V60, V90. If you can find a V60 or a V90, those would be the better cards to get. The other thing that's important to remember, where a standard mirrorless and DSLR camera will have a regular SD card, this guy has a micro SD card. See if I can center it up. It's right next to the blue battery on this side. You can't really see it that well, but that's where the micro SD card's going to live. And so you can see it too.
Oh, tiny.
It's a very tiny one, very tiny. And then when you have your SD card, it's important that you have a card reader. I had this conversation with a customer today who was plugging their camera into their computer, and they were complaining to me about the transferring of it. They said it was a lot more convoluted to get around transferring their photos off of their regular camera, and they asked me for a solution. And the first thing I mentioned was getting an SD card reader, and more I've now researched on it. When you're using an SD card reader versus plugging your camera into the computer, plugging the camera into the computer is going to go through two systems. It should go through the first system being the camera, the second system being the SD card. When you plug just the SD card in, you're avoiding having to go through any camera stuff, and you're only focusing on the SD card. So if you're trying to get your photos, your videos off, I would recommend getting a good SD card reader, make your life a little bit easier, plug the SD card inside to the reader, and then you're able to take all of your images off and then go from there. And we'll talk about some other ways of storing in a little bit, but it's important that the initial transfer from camera to computer is done the most efficient way, or most easy or accessible way possible. And now going into how to move your photos. So the first thing I like to say, and I copied this from one of my other classes that I do as well, my intermediate and my beginning photography, but it starts at 5. Don't copy your photos, or copy photos to a destination. Don't move copy. When we say that, if you are first putting on your SD card and you're first plugging your card into the computer, if you try to drag a photo from that SD card, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to move the photo. It's not actually going to duplicate the photo. And what happens there is you're now losing one area where the photo was stored or the video was stored. What I like to recommend to people is it's always important to have 2 to 3 places that you're storing these photos or videos. The horror story that I give is I went to art school. I graduated from the School of the Art Institute downtown Chicago. I had a few classmates who bought beautiful MacBooks, had a great laptops. The most data on there. They had the 512 or the 1 terabyte storage. We were very panicky in college. You're always working a lot of long hours trying to get projects done at a reasonable time. The amount of kids that spilled coffee on their computers and lost everything was just ridiculous. And teachers and professors when I was in school would always recommend that you should be saving your photos in 3 places: on your computer, on the SD card, and on a hard drive. It should be the 3 spots. So when I say don't move copy, I mean keep that photo on the SD card. Have a collection of SD cards that are filled with all your photos on there, so that way no matter what, you lose a laptop, you lose a hard drive, you have them. I personally, and this kind of moves into 6 with copy, not move photos to a second place too. If you're moving stuff, Explorer, Windows is going to be Explorer, and then Mac is going to use Finder. But copying to a second place. So for me, I personally like to reuse all my SD cards. I don't like to just keep buying and buying and buying SD cards. So what I did is I bought 2 1 terabyte hard drives. One of them lives by my computer, and so after I've taken my photos off of my SD card, I personally move them to the hard drive. But then what I do is I copy all of those photos into another hard drive. That hard drive lives in a safe, and I keep that safe under my bed, so that way, God forbid anything were to happen to my house or anything else, I could always get back to those files, and I don't have to worry about having to start over. I have artwork all the way from my high school years. I've got work that I've had for almost 20 years on my hard drive. So I'm a very, very particular person about about holding on to that stuff and making sure it stays safe, because I have seen the tragedy of losing all your work. Other options that you can do, so the external drive is a great option, that 1 terabyte hard drive. Prime Photos is another service that's done by Amazon. That's a great option too. And then Google Drive. A lot of people use Google Drive. It's a great storage and cloud-based solution. We'll talk a little bit more about cloud-based solution, I believe, on the next slide or one more slide, but it's definitely worth getting into if you're not as familiar with it. And then lastly, eject the card before physically removing it. There's a good chance you won't ruin your card, and we'll be honest about that if you just remove it from the computer. But again, if the card and the computer are still moving, they're still transferring stuff over, and that doesn't register in your head when you go to pull that, you don't know what could happen to the SD card. You could lose all of those photos that you were trying to transfer over. It might not save them properly. It could cause something to kind of glitch in the system where the card can't recognize that there was any more photos, or the computer never got them. So what I really, really strongly recommend is on Mac, you can click the SD card and drag it to the trash can. That ejects it. On Windows, on the bottom right corner, you should see a button that allows you to eject the SD card that you have plugged in. Same thing goes if you're plugging in an external hard drive. It's a good way of making sure that you're not risking you losing any of your stuff. And then format the card and the camera. When you put the card back into the camera, when you first get your SD cards, you put them inside the camera, there should be an option for you to format through the settings of the camera, depending on which camera it is. From there, that formats the SD card to specifically work with the model of camera that you are shooting with. It's not necessary to do that every single time, but I will be honest with you, when you're using when you're formatting the cards, you're making it so that way whatever SD card you're using is formatted and works specifically for the camera that you're shooting with. And then don't erase it on the reader. Again, I do as I say, not as I do. I like to move them from the SD card onto a hard drive, put it onto another hard drive, and those are my backups. But I would strongly recommend keeping them on the SD cards. It's a really nice way of you then kind of labeling your SD cards, saying that this was this trip, or this was this one, or maybe this was this photo shoot on this day that you did. I have a lot of friends that have hundreds of SD cards, and they just write the date from when they were shooting on it. So you have a lot of different options there when it comes to that. Here are the options for your backup plans. This is what I was talking about earlier. It starts with the SD card. Always starts with the SD card. That's what lives inside your camera, whether that be this little GoPro, whether that be the Action series from DJI, the Insta cameras, or even a mirrorless DSLR point and shoot camera. From there, you're going to move it to the computer. You can move it via two different ways: an SD card reader, which is my preferred and I would say the most recommended way of doing it, or you can transfer by simply plugging this thing into the computer and then just transferring it from there. My only issue with doing that is I've seen how frustrating it can be for some of my customers. Make it easy on yourself. Buy that extra little accessory. They're very inexpensive, and it's worth having if you're a serious photographer and if you're really getting into it. And then lastly, once you move it onto the computer, or you copy it onto the computer, I should say, you should store it in one of the other two places that you can see on the screen. Hard drive is what I've got on the top corner. Hard drive is what we've been talking about the whole time. You can get a 1 terabyte hard drive, you can get a 512 gigabyte hard drive. They have many sizes. And they're very similar to that, where they have a cable coming out the back end that plugs into the computer, and they look like a silver plate. Underneath it, you've got a cloud, and that is representative of the cloud-based storage. So I said I would talk about it a little bit later. Cloud-based solutions allow for you to store your information wherever you are in the world and then access it anywhere in the world. So for example, I love it a lot. My only issue with cloud-based solutions is if you are not a password person. If you're someone who struggles to remember passwords, or you don't like signing into stuff, that's the one downside to the cloud-based solution, is that you can access it anywhere you want in the world, but you got to sign into whatever computer you want to get it off of there, or to get it onto that computer, or to do whatever you want with it. So if you're not someone who is a good password rememberer, it might not be the best for you. But it's a really nice thing, only because there's never been a time where you're able to put all your information at, let's say Chicago, Illinois, and then go out to Denmark or to Australia and access it in one spot without having to fly with it, carry it with you, do anything. So it's a really nice option. Other cloud-based solutions to try. So we talked about the Google Photos on the top there. Another one that I like is OneDrive. This one comes from Microsoft specifically, so the Windows. Great service as well. But my personal favorite out of the bunch is Adobe Creative Cloud. And I've mentioned Adobe Creative Cloud, I believe to you before. It is their cloud-based solution, but it's also their platform for using their editing software. So when you go to something like Adobe Creative Cloud, you have the abilities to monthly subscribe to things like Lightroom, Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, a few of the other ones that I can't name right now, but the Adobe Creative Cloud first gives you that, and then on top of that too, it allows you to safely store all your stuff via their cloud. So not only anywhere in the world can you now access all their services and their editing tools, but now you can also access your work via the same app. And now let's do a little tour of the GoPro, talk about the button layouts and everything else. So, to start off on the GoPro, we have our top button here. That is the capture button. It is a red circle that lives on the top on a little square. The capture button is what's going to take your photo and stop your video, or take your photo or start and stops your video, I should say. That's the main button you'll be using as far as actually recording or not recording. The power button, which is located on the side of the unit, that's going to house the on and off and it's also going to help you toggle between all the different modes. So when you look at this guy, your record and photo button, and then on the side here is your power button and mode button. So like a camera has a dial where you can switch between the different modes to say if you want to go manual, aperture priority, shutter. This rotates between photo, video, and time-lapse.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then the big thing is that your screen is your whole piece. So the last note I have on the thing is your screen is everything. When I say your screen is everything, these are going to give you your simple movements, but this is what's really going to allow you to control the settings. So the screen is fully touchscreen. From there, I can decide what my speed of my video, what my frame rates are. I can decide what the quality of my video or photo is. I can decide how wide or zoomed in or portrait my lens is. I can set all of that on here. The hyper smooth technology they have, which is its built-in stabilization, kind of show you. If I were to have this on my bike and I was biking, it probably would be shaking like this the whole time. GoPro has a built-in stabilizer that allows for almost a perfectly clear video the whole time. So your screen is everything. Capture button, power and mode button. That's all it is. Now the screen, this is what's going to allow you to control the FPS, the frames per second. It's going to allow you to control the angle and lens millimeter size. So for example, it'll say on there wide, it'll say telephoto, I believe it says portrait too, but the wide angle is a 16 to 34 millimeter. Portrait's around 50, and then telephoto goes up from there. Video quality. Depending on the GoPro you're getting, there's multiple different video qualities that you can use with this. So you can stay at the 4K the whole time, but you can also drop down to 2.7 and then 1080. You have options. Hindsight is a feature that was recently added to this guy. It gives you the ability of an autofocus feature, if I'm not mistaken, on the camera, but you have the ability to set on-site or hindsight on and off on the physical screen of the camera. And when you open up the menu system, you're able to play with that. Hyper smooth is the stabilization that I was just mentioning. If this guy is shaky while you're on the bike, it's going to do its best to make sure that it doesn't actually show any of those bumps and kind of movement. And then lastly, the front screen. A lot of people that get GoPros use these for selfie purposes. They will get the selfie sticks, or they'll set up tripods. They'll figure out different ways. There's different ways of recording themselves, but there's also a remote that you can get for this unit too. So what a lot of people will do is they will set this up to take videos or photos of themselves, and when you do that, you also have a tiny little screen here in the front. A tiny little screen in the front will also show you everything that the video is recording. So for those who are trying to do more of a vlog or a selfie, or maybe you're just trying to record yourself doing something, some skits of some kind, you can use this front screen to see exactly what you're doing. It's not going to be as nice as the back screen, which is bigger and has more pixels, giving you more of a clear shot on this, but it still will do a good job dictating what's happening. Now, modes to talk about, they're pretty self-explanatory, but I like to go into a little detail. Photo allows you to capture stills in frames rather than take videos. So photos will allow you to use this as a regular camera. It will take a photo for you, and then you're good to go. Time-lapse. When you turn the video on, it will capture over a duration of time, and then it will compress the video and then play the captured video over a period of time within seconds or minutes. So the examples I give for this are, let's say that you are at the lake for the sunrise and you want to record it. What you might do is set the time lapse on the physical camera, turn it on, have it pointed towards the sunrise. It's going to go up like normal, go back, do its whole thing. When you play the video back, it's going to speed it up 10 to 15 to 20 times. And what's going to happen is you're going to get this beautiful time lapse of the sun coming up quickly and going over, versus it naturally coming up and taking hours and hours and hours to get it. So it's a really cool feature. I see that. I see a lot of cars too with this. Some people will set the GoPro up by the expressways, and they will record all the cars zipping past, and it's really fast, but it's really cool looking videos. So time lapse is something that you definitely should play with if you have a GoPro. And then finally, video. You can record video for whatever duration you want. And I believe that was introduced on the Hero 9 and up. So anything from the Hero 9, which we're looking at the Hero 10 currently, you can record a video for any duration you want and whatever quality you want with features like Hypersmooth. So what I like about GoPro's video options is where some companies have a hard time giving you a full package of this can do this, this, and that. GoPro does deliver almost everything a cinematographer could want in something like this at a good price. But they really don't lie about being able to perform one thing or not do the other. And I think one of the biggest things with the filming in any duration that you want, I know with Sony cameras, for example, some of their higher end models can have 4K video no limit. Other models can only do 4K for 30 minutes. So it's nice to see a camera that has 4K capabilities and has 4K power, but is able to make a video that, but they're able to make a product that is this small that can record for a length of time that, for whatever length of time that you want, which I think is really nice. So, taking better videos, let's talk about some things that you can do as a cinematographer to bring your video game up a little bit more. So, a couple things I like to talk about, and then I'll use images later to really get into this more. First things first, keep the sun on your back. GoPros do really well in sun, but all photographers and videographers should keep the light behind them or the subject. This is an important one, but it's not a necessary, and I should say that all these things I'm saying right now are tips. They're not necessarily concrete facts for how you need to be shooting. You as a photographer, you as a cinematographer, it's your job to figure out what content, what information you're collecting and then bringing to an audience, what that is going to entail. So, when I say keep the sun behind your back or the subject's back, you can interpret that literally in every photo that you take of a subject, or let's say anytime you're shooting, you decide and kind of keep that sun in a certain location. While that's fine, for depending on the situation, you can always experiment with not doing that. And that's what I probably would recommend the most, is get out there, play with the camera, see what really you like and you don't like about it, and then kind of come back to work on that, to fix and make those improvements. I personally will keep the sun on my back, because what happens is if I can block out the sun as I'm shooting, I'm creating less shadow on whatever the subject matter is, because I've been kind of like blocking it out. Downside to that, though, is it might not necessarily light up the subject matter in the way that I want. So if that's the case, I might flip-flop things. We now have the subject in front of us, and the sun is behind them. We now get a sunlight that kind of wraps around the person that we're taking a photo of, illuminating them more, maybe calling out something like the color of their shirt, or maybe pants that they're wearing, or especially if it's anything within fashion, you're looking for ways to use natural lighting to call attention to certain details. I would say the same thing goes for taking pictures of flowers, of insects, of athletes, whatever it is that you're taking photos of or doing. Videos especially too, one of the easiest tricks you can do is trying to keep the sun on your back or on your subject's back. Get close. It's something that a lot of photographers shy away with, and now living in the age of COVID and everything else, it is a little scary getting closer and closer to certain subjects, or just getting close to people in general. But a lot of people struggle with using the GoPro cameras or using a regular camera because of their inability to move. They imagine that the camera is going to zoom in as much as they need for them, and that's all they need to worry about, when in reality the camera is going to do the best job it can but it's still up to you, the cinematographer, the photo guy. You need to be able to find a way to get closer to the subject so that way you can help the camera function at its best capabilities. Keep people in center. Center your subject, center your object, not only to keep them center but in focus. So don't just keep anything in complete center without keeping in mind about focus. Video tends to focus better in the center, especially with something like a GoPro, but don't let that limit you to what you can and can't film and how you're keeping people in the center. We'll talk about a few other methods of filming and taking photos and how you can really work on that. Compose your shot. Use objects and scenery around you to dictate your shot. I think it's extremely important that as an artist, as someone who's getting into videos, into photo, study where you want to go shoot. Have a plan. Have a thought process behind it. Because if you can go somewhere that you're fully interested in, that you actually want to take photos and videos of, composing your shot should be very simple. Using objects and scenery around you can help dictate your shot. For others, it might be mental block, or they're just not, it doesn't click for them. But for the majority of people, if you can read your object that you're taking photos of, read your subject matter a little bit better, you can see the little things that are maybe scattered around the room, scattered around the subject, and you can really organize and arrange those to get the best looking photo with the most detail, the most I'd say story to it is kind of the word that I'm looking for. So, 100%. And then use Wi-Fi for more features. The GoPro, most DSLR and mirrorless cameras that have been manufactured, I want to say 2013 and newer, are all going to have a form of Wi-Fi transfer. Great feature. It'll just use your battery up a lot. But using Wi-Fi features on here is great. GoPro also has a service where you can pay for it monthly. You can take your videos and actually edit them on the GoPro app. And you can stitch them together, play with them, do a lot of really nice things. So composing a scene. I'll use this image as a good example to kind of start the whole thing off. When we talk about composition, we can talk about a lot of different things, and there's a multitude of different ways to go about understanding composition. One thing I like to say that you should be looking for is a horizon line. So if we look at the photo that's in front of us, and if I hold my camera out, the horizon line that's sitting there is going to be where the sky, meets the water. That is the horizon line. And when we look at the horizon line, that is supposed to be the middle part of our eye line, in a sense. But really the main idea is that sky meets water, and they meet at the horizon. When we're drawing, when we're painting, when we're taking photos, if we can find the horizon line and line up with it, it's a much more satisfying shot to the eye. So as we look at this gentleman or person who's hanging their hand out with their GoPro, we can see that they perfectly have the horizon line in the middle of their camera as well too. It leads to a more powerful image, leads to what feels like a more thought out and curated image, but then it also just takes a very clean shot. Here's another one that we're composing. So in this case, again, we have to remember too, these are photos, not videos. But the sun on the back definitely was not applied on this one. The person who's shooting this stepped at least over to the left. If they probably would have gone more right and centered up with the person and had the sun behind them, it might have had a little more of a dramatic effect. But in this case, I like it because it feels like the sun is drowning out almost our subject matter, where we can see the subject clearly, we know what's happening, but we have this beautiful sunrise or sunset happening in the distance that's visible towards the front of our photo. Another one that I like, we've got someone walking on the beach. Now we're using what we call the rule of thirds. So earlier today I said center your photos. Another thing that you can do is you can use or implement the rule of 3/3, which I do talk about on the next slide. We're dividing the page or the photo into two different sections of threes. So the first one we can look at would be the main one. So horizontally 1, horizontally 2, horizontally 3. The second one that we can think about is the vertical. We have vertical top, vertical middle, and vertical bottom. As we look at this slide here, we can see that the vertical top and the vertical bottom are both going to intersect at 4 different points. And if we put a subject matter, or we put an object of which we're trying to take a photo in between these points, and it could go there, it could go there. It probably would be better if let's see, there we go. So for my people at home watching, it could be these first 2 dots, it could then be the last 2 dots as well too. It really depends on what you want and what your subject is looking for, and then also what environment or what you're shooting in, what is the scenery that you're in. But to compose a good shot, a simple shot that'll look good and look pleasing to the eye, especially as a beginning videographer or photographer, look for that horizon line and see if you can implement the rule of thirds. So to go back to this slide, if we look at the person who's walking on the beach, we can clearly see that she is in the left and right, or left center quadrant of our rule of thirds. We have the sunset behind her, but it is behind a rock. So what it's doing is it's casting a really nice shadow on her, darkens up her figure in the back there, but overall, it's really not about her as much as it's about the, I would say, largeness of the place that they're standing in right now. Comparing that to the size of a human, I think, would be a really interesting photo or video. Another one, this is one of my personal favorites, my surfer dude. I think this sums up perfectly what the rule of thirds is all about. On the right side, we have our gentleman who is standing in front of the sunset, and that's causing him to look almost all black. We really only get color on him towards his feet, and it's really not too much. But why I like this one is the mirror image in the wet sand below. If we look at him and then we look below him, we can see his feet are attached to himself basically, and it's the sand reflecting back upwards. So not only is he in the perfect rule of thirds line and he's sitting perfect, but then the shadow of his is also on that same line, and it kind of gives this double effect. And then on top of that too, if we look in the background, we can see the horizon line where the sky and the water meets. What I really like about it is the fact that it's very almost lined up with the top line, making this a very symmetrical image. Another one, we like beach photos here, they're popular. But we can see in this one clearly that she is standing on the left side of our rule of thirds. Now there's no shadow with her this time. It seems like it's a little bit overcast, so I could imagine that this would be more of like a Seattle or a Oregon. But my main point, if we look at the little girl, she's easily standing in the rule of thirds. A little bit to the left of where the marker is, but we have dramatic storm clouds coming through. We have a little bit of sunshine that's coming down, but we have a very dramatic and scene-oriented photo. And then last but not least, my families. These 2 families here, or I should say one family, boy and girl. We have the mom and the dad duo in the background. They're in the line of the first third. And then we have our daughter and son in the front line. They are, left line. They are front and center while the others are back. We have space for distance, or a way of telling differential between people, because we can see the convecting lines that are going back from the building towards what we call a vanishing point. A vanishing point is going to live on the line of horizon. So if this is the horizon line, we have one vanishing point, and that's going to basically disappear every time we draw to it, or if we take photos to it. So if we look at the roof and the windows and the edge of the 2 buildings next to it, we can see how they all converge into one point all the way in the back. Great visual cue if you're ever downtown and you want to take better photos. The South Loop and River North are notorious for having buildings that have been there for 100 years or so, I would say. And on top of that too, those buildings themselves, what was the term I was looking for? was going somewhere with that. Oh, if you ever go downtown, you take the pictures of buildings, you're going to notice how almost every single building will start to go backwards and vanish into a single point further away. And that's the vanishing point perspective. That's the horizon line that we're seeing. It all kind of adds into each other, and you start to notice that in your daily life. But when you're taking a photo, it's really easy when you're looking through the viewfinder, or you're looking at your LCD screen, or if you're filming, you can see those lines. Another thing too to look at on your camera, you can actually set this grid on the camera itself. I recommend to even my expert photographers or myself, I do it all the time on my iPhone, on my real camera. This little 3x3 grid pops up on my camera, and it really does help me pick out the shots and influence it better. And then good old Jim from The Office. I still really like this image. I'll keep using it at every presentation if I can. Jim is off on the right side of our screen there. He is lining up with one of the thirds, and then on top of that too, we have all this dead space on the left side of him. But it's visually pleasing, and it gives us enough information that, I mean, as fans of The Office, I think we all know that that's the break room. But I think what's fascinating about the rule of thirds too is, in my previous classes in basic camera and in intermediate camera, one of the things I talk about is filling the frame with your subject. A lot of the times getting rid of negative space or dead space really helps freshen up the photo or video. In this case of Jim, the little bit of information on the background behind actually gives enough information, or gives a little more information to the viewer to show that this is an office space that Jim is sitting in. He is in the conference room where he's sitting. So depending on the context of the photo, that could be more of a photo theory or a video theory class that we could talk about, but I would say that you as the director or cinematographer or videographer or photographer, you have the ability and the job to either give people more or less information based on your photo. On the sense that you're giving them more information, you have to be careful about giving them too much stuff. If there's a lot going on in the photo, sometimes it gunks it all up, and the main point of the photo that you were taking, the main intention that you had when shooting, is lost in translation. Sometimes dumbing it down too much, where then there's nothing in the area, it's just one main thing that you're doing a photo or video on, might be too little of information. My example is when I go to the Art Institute and I take photos there, or when I go to museums, I like to take photos with people next to the piece. And the reason I do that is because of the size and scale of artwork. When you look at certain paintings, they could be 20, 30, 40 feet tall. But if you take a photo with the edges of the painting meeting the edges of your frame in your camera, you're going to give no context to scale, no context to the size, and it gets lost a little bit. But now let's say on the opposite end, you take a picture where there's 5 or 6 people standing around a sculpture or painting, and you don't get the details or the nuances and the beauty of the sculpture had you have gotten closer and just taken a photo of it by itself. And that's kind of the battle you pick and choose as you're filming and as you're taking photos. It's the give and take that you're going to see for anybody who's shooting or taking photos. Now, when we use Wi-Fi and accessories, Wi-Fi is a great resource on the camera. I consider that an accessory that automatically comes with your camera. Years ago, cameras literally, you had to plug them into the computer, and prior to that you had to go develop film, and then prior to that you had a plate that absorbed the image on there, and if you messed up, that was it. You had to spend a lot of money to buy that, and that's when the first cameras came out. But Wi-Fi is a great resource for getting your videos edited a little bit faster. Using the phone is another accessory towards your actual device. But then on top of that too, transferring videos back and forth. I get a lot of customers who, they'll be on the road. I just was talking to a gentleman today who wanted to buy a camera for a 73-day cruise that he's about to go on. I thought that was crazy. I'm like, you're going to be gone for a quarter of the year. Sounds exciting though. He's looking at getting a camera, and he had a simple point-and-shoot camera, and we're talking about the differences of maybe upgrading to a mirrorless or a DSLR so he gets even better photos. He was comparing it to his iPhone very closely, and I couldn't disagree with him. It's very similar, given it's a point-and-shoot camera. But one of the things that we talked about was the ability to use the phone as an additional accessory, and I told them one of the coolest parts about having your phone as an accessory is you can send the videos and photos to the phone. And if you're someone who maybe has friends who are pestering you about how your vacation's going, how's this going, it's a really easy way for you to take that stuff and send it to them and say, there you go, there's all my stuff. Or just to give them a quick update on how you're doing. And I really like that feature a lot with it. But GoPro is a wonderful thing because they have an abundance of accessories that I don't think any other camera has ever had. GoPro has mounts for your head, for your bike, for your car, for airplanes, for helicopters. I know they have mounts for your chest. You can wear a chest strap with it. They've got clamps that clamp onto literally anything and won't move the camera one bit. They've got dash cam mounts. They've got mounts to put it on your cell phone, selfie sticks, suction cup mounts. You name it, they've got it. You can get GoPro Exact accessories. You can get third-party accessories. GoPro has a mounting system that exists, and I constantly play with it when I'm holding the GoPro. But on the bottom of the camera, you're going to see, I think it might be a little tough. Let me get there it is. 2 little dots. Those dots, if you get your fingernail under them, can pop up, and you get this. Now, when you get your GoPro, you're going to also get something that looks like this, and this is their pin accessory. The way that it works in the GoPro world is that when you're out and about doing stuff, you can lock on these pin accessories. And that's how it sits safely on anything that you're using. So if this is on a chest mount, you would have this exact piece on your chest. If this was on the head, you would have the exact same thing there. I've seen a shoulder strap before where a person had the camera on their shoulder. I think that was more aesthetically what they were going for. They wanted it to look like a first-person kind of action video. In my mind, though, I was like, why not just do it on the forehead? But that's not for me to ask. But you have options with that, and I think it's a really nifty thing that the GoPro has as many accessories as it has. And then Wi-Fi based accessories. So there's 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Other than the phone, you don't need all of your accessories to have Wi-Fi. It's not going to be the most beneficial thing in the world. But the remote, it's a great way for you to use Wi-Fi on the camera and use the camera's kind of frequency that it goes on. The remote can kind of control everything on there, act as a shutter for you. If you want to put the camera, I don't know, further down the way, maybe you want to stand 50 yards away, hit the button, and then run towards the camera for whatever reason, you can do that. If maybe you and the family are standing in front of the Grand Canyon and you want to get a really cool shot, you set the GoPro on a tripod, you click the button, you can do that too. I have some people that do that for the videos where they'll be doing other stuff and they'll click go and then they'll say action and then all these things will happen in front of the camera. But they don't have to hold it, they don't have to touch it, they don't have to be anywhere near the camera, but they can use the remote. Selfie stick. Another very popular thing with the GoPro, I see a lot of YouTubers and content creators who use this selfie stick. And the selfie stick has Wi-Fi and a frequency built into it. Where it allows you to take the selfie stick, which usually has a button to engage, go and stop, and picture. And what's nice about that is you extend the GoPro how far away from your body. You obviously have it so far away you can't click the button because of your arm. So what you would do is on the handle, you'd be able to click it, and the camera would be maybe 3 feet away from your face, and you would get a beautiful back shot. All the detail behind you, maybe you're next to somebody else. My example would be a lot of these Comic-Cons or festivals that they have going on around the world. A lot of famous actors or celebrities are out there, and when you see one, you like to take a photo with them. A lot of people don't want to take a photo just of the celebrity. That's really boring. They want a picture of them and the celebrity to just show that they got to meet them, their hero or what have you. A lot of people take selfies, and they'll use the camera, and it looks fine, but I see a lot of people that use the GoPro and have that selfie stick, and it looks a lot better because of the distance that they're able to get away from themselves. They have more information happening in the frame. Another good accessory that you could add to your repertoire if you're in the GoPro world. Some additional accessories that we talked about. On the right side, we have the flex arms. Those guys allow you to move around. They bend. They're very posable. In the center there, we have an adventure set. We also have, I believe it's called the Chesty set. Could be 1,000% wrong on that name. Sounds kind of goofy, so I think I'm wrong. The top set comes with what they call the floater. It has a little orange tip on there. If you drop this thing in the water, the idea is that that thing's going to rise up and then keep your camera up. These guys can go 50 meters underwater, which I think is a really nice feat. If you want to go even further, they do sell mod kits that you can put on the actual GoPro to allow you to go even further underwater. But if you're going to the Bahamas or Hawaii and you're going to snorkel in shallow water, look at turtles or manta rays, this might be awesome to put on with one of the chest straps and just swim with it. I see a lot of people that do that. Yeah. Or use the floater, so that way, just in case you let go of this on accident, this guy will float up to the top and then you don't have to worry about digging underwater to find it. The other one that I really like is just below it, the one that comes with the chest strap and then the bike strap, or the bike handlebar strap. I get a lot of guys who come in that do ATVs, motorcycles, motocross, BMX, a bunch of different stuff. And they'll get that one in particular so they can mount it to their handlebar and then have the GoPro going the whole time. Gives them a good video, gives them a good way of, what's the term I'm looking for? Recording hands-free, but in this first-person view, which has like a nice adrenaline rush to it. It looks really cool. There's some really awesome GoPro videos out of that. I see a lot of skiers that do it too, where they'll ski down the mountain as the snow is like kind of falling behind them, and they either have a head strap or a chest strap, which I think is pretty cool. And then recommended accessories. You know, you can go through and decide what you want for yourself, and you can decide what's the most beneficial for you. The four things I probably would say you need right off the bat: at least 1 to 2 extra batteries. I can't stress enough with these guys. They're great cameras. They work for a while. Battery life gets eaten up on this. It depends on the quality in the video that you're doing. It depends on how much you're recording. It depends on temperature too outside. But a GoPro probably will last you anywhere between 45 minutes at the least amount of time, all the way up to 2-3 hours. And that's the max I've seen it. I probably have to go online and get a better stat for that one. But having an extra battery and the charging hub for it is great. If you don't have a charging hub for this, for the batteries for this, the only way to charge the batteries on the GoPro is by opening up the battery compartment, and there's actually a USB-C plug. That's the only way that you can charge the camera without getting the battery hub. I would recommend getting the hub just so that way you can charge a couple batteries, put them in your bag with you when you're going places. The bag, I think, is an additional accessory that you should have if you're just getting started. Keep an extra memory card with you too. I think those are important. And then other than that, everything else I would say is definitely going to be extra stuff that you can purchase later on, or when you feel more comfortable, or when you see that those accessories are necessary. You know, the handheld accessory is really nice because carrying the GoPro around like this and filming is kind of silly. So having something where you can sit the GoPro on and kind of hold it in your hand like this, it's really nice to have. I probably would put that on as a 4th or a 5th needed accessory. Tripods are also great. I think every photographer in the world should have at least one tripod, whether that's, you know, one they got on Amazon for $5 or whether that's one they spent $400, $500, $600 on. Everybody should have at least one tripod if you're shooting video or taking photos. Head straps are great, especially if you're a skier, snowboarder. External hard drives, from what we talked about at the beginning of class, just saving your stuff, making sure it has a home to live in. Protective housing of some sort. Again, very durable camera, can take a big beating, but if you have that extra protective housing on there, you're giving yourself just one more layer of protection. Humans are rough on their belongings. We make accidents happen out of nowhere. GoPro users, you're biking, you're BMXing, you're doing tricks. You never know what could happen. A microphone is great for one of these guys. And then the last thing, classes and workshops. I think that anybody who finishes high school, even graduates from college, The one thing I can tell them all is that you should forever be a student, and you should forever try to learn something new every day. It keeps the brain going, it keeps the mind active, but it also keeps you up to date with everything that's out there. And the GoPro is a really useful piece of technology for a cinematographer, for content creators, for anybody who's really trying to get their voice out in the video or photo aspect. GoPro's a great tool. Keeping yourself educated on how to use it. What are tips and tricks that other professionals are using in the business? I'm just one example of someone who is, selling these on a daily basis to customers who come in, and I've used GoPro for years myself personally. So I speak from someone who's come from a very small background, I would say, on using it. I would never consider myself a GoPro expert like I do in the camera world. Get out there, practice, use it. That's always the best strategy too. We talked earlier in the day about using, reading your directions, going on YouTube for additional classes, trying out Masterclass, for example. But I think anybody who uses a camera can contest the real only way to learn how to use it is to use it. Just at least try. So definitely would recommend it. And then the last thing we'll talk about, I might have one more thing after this, but the main thing that we'll talk about before we keep going is the editing software. You've got all your videos now, you've maybe filmed a whole vacation's worth of videos, you got 9 hours worth of video, now you're trying to figure out what do you do with all this 9 hours, because some of it's just you arguing with a friend, and some of it's just you pointing the camera at the ground trying to figure out how to work it. You've got good video, but you got kind of filler space in there. What do you do? That's where you get into the editing programs. And we talked a little bit about before things on Adobe Creative Cloud, and the Premiere is their video editing software. I definitely would recommend it. GoPro has their own video editing software. I believe you pay monthly for that. You might get a free subscription right off the bat if you buy a GoPro. I think they give it to you with the package itself, and then afterwards it becomes a monthly fee. But that's one that you can access both on your phone, on the computer, allows you to edit and play with all the GoPro stuff with their own software. iMovie is in the corner. If you are an Apple user and you got a MacBook, you already have a free at-home video editing software. Is it the best thing in the world with the most detail and in-depth tools? If you're a professional, it is most definitely not. But if you're someone who's just trying to make a couple fun videos to maybe send to the family or do silly stuff for work or with your friends, iMovie might be just enough for you. And it definitely helps someone who's new to this get into it at a low cost without having to really invest a lot in this editing software, which does add up. Above the iMovie is then Windows version of a movie editor. I believe it's called Movie Editor. Actually, that's just its name. I could be wrong. But that's a free service that's included on your Windows computer. So if you're not a MacBook user, that's another one that you can use too. Definitely would recommend it. Same idea. Very simple, basic ways to edit your videos, put stuff together, kind of cut out content that you don't want out of there, and really kind of make a substantial video. And that is all I got for you guys. As always, thank you for joining. Thank you for coming in today. I appreciate having you. It's usually quiet on the GoPro days. I got nobody here. And like I said in the beginning, this is most likely the last GoPro class that we'll do for this. We'll probably switch up these last Thursdays of the month, only because the GoPros, I feel like they're very simple, and I have a lot of people that have made it apparent to me that there's really no reason to. It's a self-explanatory camera, but I wanted to offer it. I wanted to make sure that everybody felt confident with their GoPro. So please, if you have any comments right now or questions, chat them up. I'm right here. I'm not going to go anywhere until more viewers drop off. But please, if you have anything you want to say, by all means. If not, next Thursday, 5:30, I'll say Chicago time. I always forget, are we Central? Are we Central time? Oh, yeah. 5:30 Central time.
I
think so. I'm going to say Chicago time, just to be on the safe side. 5:30 p.m. Chicago time, we're going to do my favorite class of the month. That's the basic camera class, where we talk about how to use automatic settings on the camera, but how to frame up and shoot the camera in the most effective way. Some other tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, and then we'll go into a little more detail about that. But everybody, I usually get a lot of people that day, so please join for that one. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to chime in. But thanks everybody for watching.
got a question.
What you got?
Is that, the pixels in there, is that the same as a camera pixel?
Yes and no. Let me pull up these stats on this. Actually, I can do it.
Because I'm just wondering if I could put this in my camera editing.
Oh,
Lightroom, I have Lightroom.
yeah. Let's see. GoPro.
My goodness, where- okay. That's interesting, I never knew that existed.
The GoPro?
Yeah, it's just very interesting.
Let's see.
Okay, what's next week? 10 something or other.
Next week is going to be, I believe, 10.6.
And basic.
Yes. So the Hero 10, which is the one that I have in my hand right now, has a 23 megapixel sensor. So if you're shooting on some of the newer Sony cameras, not necessarily the high-end Sonys, more of the intro-level Sonys, if you're shooting with something that's above like a Rebel T7i, I would say that would probably be one of the, like a 16 megapixel camera. This would be above that. Nike.
So I can transfer that into Lightroom.
Oh yeah, absolutely you could.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's very convenient.
And at the price point too, I believe this guy sells for $399, $350, something like that.
That's
So
not bad at
compared
all.
to some of these cameras that
Yeah.
are selling for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, this is
Well, I still like my camera because you can do more with it.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
But another thing, if someone can't reach out that far or get that far, is there something you could put over the lens that can help you out with a wider angle?
Can, but I really wouldn't recommend it because GoPro doesn't make those accessories. Those are made by like a third-party company, and so the lens is wide enough. It's pretty wide.
It is.
What you'd want to do is get a selfie stick. So the
Yeah.
selfie stick would attach, they're like 50 or 60 bucks, but then basically this gives you like 3 or 4 more feet off of your body.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And the selfie stick itself is a Wi-Fi accessory, so
And
you
then
can.
how close can you draw?
It depends on the can. Let's see if I can turn this on. It does have a little battery. So here's the camera right now.
Right.
Now if I change this, I can then change the zoom.
Oh. Oh.
That's the speed.
Oh, so you can.
Let me do. There we go. So I can change this and do whatever I want with
Okay.
it. I have to switch to photo. So here's the photo setting. So we're in photo narrow. So we can do. So narrow, 27 millimeter lens, so it's a little bit more of a wide.
Good.
Then you can move up to linear, which moves 19 to 39, so it actually gives you kind of more of a wonky perspective.
Yeah, that's good. That's wide.
And then you get
enough.
wide.
Oh, wow.
16 to
So
34.
you have some control over
And
it.
so you do.
Oh,
So
that's good.
narrow is probably the one that you'd want to do, just to make sure that you have the least amount of distortion on, like, taking a photo of yourself or doing a video of yourself.
Oh, yeah, right.
But then let's say, I know you were talking about Botanic Gardens the last time we spoke. If you do this way, then maybe you could do more of a shot that gives you a much wider angle
Yeah.
of a field of flowers or a setup that they have that you can get from corner to corner.
Well, my latest thing is getting very close to the wide angle lens.
I think you were telling me the last time, I think you showed me a
Yeah,
couple photos.
That's my latest thing.
But yeah, very basic to
Okay,
use.
that's interesting.
Yeah. And then it switches to the time lapse too, which is another fun feature.
That is interesting.
Beep, so let's turn them off.
Oh,
But yeah, very simple and easy to use camera. I think that's the other part is that, yeah, I've been teaching this one the same amount of time that I've been teaching the other ones. This is just the last day of the month. I usually don't get a lot of people for this one. I think it's only because it's a very simple camera to use.
well, I think it's interesting because I've never heard of it before,
Really?
you see,
Yeah.
so it's just broadens my horizon. I love my camera so much, I probably, this wouldn't be enough for me,
Oh no, definitely, yeah, I don't
you
know.
know?
But
I could
it's a fun
see-
toy.
Yeah, it is, it really is.
A lot of the people that I talk to, who are getting more and more into making videos or just having fun with it. They post stuff on YouTube or they make their own stuff just for fun. They call it the trifecta. They'll have a drone, something that can fly. They'll have a GoPro for their action, and they'll have their regular camera for all their other stuff. That's like their trifecta of content making, of the best stuff, because you get a little bit of everything, and then you can combine all three to get the best stuff. So you can combine the drone footage that you're getting and add it to this footage.
Oh my God.
And then if you want to sprinkle in some stuff from your camera, especially if you have one of the newer mirrorless cameras, all of them connect. And the coolest part about it is they call it the aspect ratio of what you're shooting or you're taking photos of. You can set all three of those to have the same aspect ratio. So
so you can't tell.
Yeah, you can't tell. You'll just, it's basically like watching a movie where they do all the panning from different angles. It's exactly what you get.
Oh my God, so now I know, that makes sense.
Yeah. But when I would go home, if I were you, I'd go on YouTube, just type in GoPro videos and see what they got. They have some really funky ones out there. People are doing cool stuff. My favorite is the skiers still. These guys will put one on their chest or put one on their head, and they'll start at the top of the mountain, and you just see nothing. Just everything's quiet, desolate. It's kind of spooky. And then all of a sudden they just jump.
Oh.
And you are right there, eye to eye, first person view, watching them cut down. They'll turn around and you'll see snow rushing at them, and they'll keep going faster. And it's really cool. It's a little dizzy if you got vertigo or if anything makes you dizzy. It's a little much, but it's a really cool thing. But yeah, I get a lot of people that do that. I had one dad who wanted to do something cool for his kid, so he put together a video of the kid playing baseball. And one of the things he did was he tied the GoPro to his bat. So when the kid went to go swing, the GoPro went in the full swing circle. And it looked like he was swinging at full speed. It was so cool. It was so cool.
I would get dizzy watching that.
Yeah. But yeah, you can do a lot of fun stuff with it, and that's the one nice part about it is it's not necessarily going to replace your mirrorless or your DSLR, but it's an additional tool that you can
Yeah, right. It's a completely different aspect of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Really good. Did you get any questions?
Not yet. It looks like I still got some people watching on here, so I'll give it a few more minutes. I'll give it till the 45. Anyone just wants to say hi, you can say hi too. I'll take it.
You know the picture, I don't know if you remember the picture of the butterfly.
Yeah.
I did. Thank you for showing that to me.
Yeah.
I went along the flower to get that ghost pixel by pixel. I got it.
And it worked out?
It worked out beautifully. And I entered it into a competition. 3 judges. The highest grade you can get is 9. The lowest is probably around a 6.
Okay.
Most of them are 7 with few 8s. I got 2 8s and then a 6.
But 2 8s?
I was thrilled with the 2 8s. And the 6, her criticism was the butterfly was too sharp, too much detail in the butterfly.
Okay.
Which, that's how she sees it. I saw it as being artistic.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, but you see, that's
amazing. That's the liberty of an artist, right? You get to do whatever you want, and
they get to see it, whatever they want to see.
Yeah, but that's
But
incredible.
I was pretty happy with it.
I would have been so thrilled with it. That's amazing. You please keep emailing me your photos. I really got a kick out of you. I try to.
Oh, I got another flower. I'll
Please
email
do.
that to you.
Yeah, anytime you want any feedback, please let me know. And I'd
Okay.
love looking at other customers' photos. I tell people all the time, if I sell them a camera or if I just meet them because they come to ask me about how to change a setting on their camera, I tell them,
Okay.
please email me some photos. I'd love to see what you do.
Oh, okay.
I just took, I'll show you on mine. I have golden retrievers and I have a St. Bernard at home.
I love golden retrievers.
So this is on my Fujifilm.
Oh my
This is my St. Bernard.
Oh, beautiful. Look how sharp that is.
I set my camera to be grainy. I have a high grain count on my photos. So if you start zooming in, you'll see how it gets a little grainy. I do that because it reminds me of the film.
Okay.
So I set my camera at an ISO of 800.
Oh, that's interesting. You know what? That is interesting. I never knew film was grainy.
Oh, yeah.
Before. Oh,
Yeah.
and I always loved film.
So when I'm shooting, I have a couple different cameras at home. One of my cameras is what I consider my professional camera. I have that set at the sharpest detail. I manually do everything on there. I'm very meticulous with the details.
Right.
I have my Fujifilm at home. My Fujifilm is my favorite camera. It has a rangefinder on the corner eye, so I can do the natural look through without needing to look through the lens, without going digital. It reminds me of my grandfather had a 1960s Voigtlander, which was one of the last German cameras that had that rangefinder on there. So when I take the photos, I set all of my settings to give me the most film-like quality possible. So all of my photos have a weird coloration on them. They almost have a blue tint to them.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then on top of that, the grain count is
I don't see the bluish on there.
No?
No, not really.
I get a little bit on the black deck.
The deck, I see it.
And that's supposed to be black.
Oh.
And so that's where the blue comes in. I think it's because
see.
it's out of focus, and especially because he's so dark in so many spots. But even then, that should be pitch black. And that is not.
Oh, I see.
So, and that's part of the green.
I really love that picture.
Thank you. And then I have these.
Oh.
These are my Goldens.
They are so devoted.
The sun was out, and I was on top of the deck there, and I was pointing down at them, and they were like
squinting.
squinting at me because of the sun, but they look identical, and they're cousins, so it's even funnier.
God.
But I call them my mean muggin' duo, because they look like they're just staring me down like, whose backyard is this, bro? Where'd you come from?
You know, my brother had a golden retriever, and they were between homes, so they came to my place with the dog.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't mind it, you know.
Yeah.
That dog was so loving, so devoted. I mean, I just fell in love with it.
I've grew up with golden retrievers my whole life, and I can remember having friends in grammar school in my younger years where when they were allowed to come over, they were like, oh, my mom and dad won't let me have a dog, blah, 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 because of whatever. Or they were like scared of dogs. It was always one of the two. Parents wouldn't let them have it, or they were scared of the animals. And they would come over and they would meet my Goldens. My Goldens are 130 pounds, 140, they're big boys.
Yeah, right.
I'd watch people who hated dogs, were scared of them, fall into like the biggest babies. They'd be on the floor hugging the dog, like in love.
God.
And it's amazing how that works. How it's the perspective of an animal can really change it when you have one physically with you.
I had, after we got done with dinner, you know, and my brother and sister-in-law would go in the living room and watch TV, and there was a chair that I would sit in. The golden retriever, and then meanwhile in the kitchen I was just straightening up. The golden retriever would sit right next to my chair and wait for me to come in.
Yeah.
And then he just put his head on my lap, and he was in seven heaven.
Oh.
I didn't even know the dog when he came in. They're just so lovable.
He's my wallpaper too. That's my buddy Luke.
Oh,
the
my
two
God.
dogs that I have at home. So
I love that picture.
Thank you. I got this when we were running.
You're gonna get me for not taking out all the noise.
I love it. I think
but
it's.
you know what though? I see the noise where it counts, but I don't see the noise that much in the back.
Well, so this one was done on my phone, which I think is kind of funny. And the reason it was done on my phone was because I was a little nervous about taking my camera to the physical beach that day, and I didn't have anybody else with me. But yes, you can absolutely see the noise on him. He's definitely not the most clear, but in the background has really nice coloration. But same boat with him. I come home and what he likes to do is we sleep together every night. Like he has to be in the bed with me every night. But he can only cuddle with me for so long because I get so warm at night. I'm a body heater. Like I'm just radiating heat. So he'll come up, he'll cuddle with me. I'll fall asleep, and then it's like he almost checks on me. He's like, oh, okay. All right, he's asleep. And then he goes to the end of the bed and he sleeps on my feet.
Oh my God.
And that's where he likes to sleep every night. Sometimes he won't come sleep up right by my chest. Most of the nights he'll sleep on my feet, but it's hysterical because sometimes I'll pretend that I went to bed and I can see him. He pulls his head back, looks at me. He's like, okay, he's dead asleep. Let me go.
Is that neat? That is so neat.
They're the best.
Yeah.
I couldn't have another dog in my entire life. I will always be a golden guy.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about them is with the hair that they shed. Unbelievable.
I think we have 3 or 4 vacuums in different closets in the house at home. We have them everywhere.
Oh, you know, I don't know how you do that with so many. I have, so after they stayed about a month, and I was sweeping the hair out from under my bed, 2 months later, 3 months later. Oh
It's like sand from the beach. It doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
I don't know where. I don't know how they generate all this stuff, but it's always there.
It's amazing.
They always have hair.
And my sister-in-law was so worried about it. She would brush them every morning. It still didn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. That's why we have so many vacuums in the house, because it'll literally be the whole house will be clean one day, and then 4 or 5 hours will go by, and it's just everywhere again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then you got to start vacuuming up everything.
Yeah.
And it's like for us, one will run out of battery, so we'll go to this closet and get them. And we all have the Dyson stick vacuums. Those things are the best for dog hair. They have one that's made specifically for animal hair.
Oh, neat. That is neat.
Sucks everything up. It's like we go through the house, vacuum, put it back on the charger. Like, all right, see you in a couple hours. We go all do our own thing, and then come back. Like, oh, there it is.
Did you ever think of vacuuming the dog?
I've thought about it a couple times. Vacuum from the source, but then they get scared of the vacuum, and I'm like, if only.
Nah.
One of these days, I'm just gonna hold them down. I'm gonna get you.
Right.
I do try to brush and take them for baths often, because that does help. And I use like a de-shedding shampoo when we're there to help get most of it off.
Oh, that's good.
But
Well, where do you take them for a bath?
Pet Supplies Plus. There's a couple of the dog places in the city that actually have. I live in Chicago, and I know they're in the suburbs though. But a lot of these Pet Supplies Pluses, I don't think Petco, but Pet Supplies Plus has a dog wash station.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You can pay like $25 to get 5 washes, and
Oh,
you can
that's worth
wash
it.
as much as you want.
That's worth it.
Keep it out of your bathtub at home so you don't block up those drains.
Right,
And then they
right.
usually have shampoo and everything there. I get him a special shampoo that keeps him white. That's why for his fur. Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, Saxon, that was enjoyable.
As always.
I didn't know anything about Pro. What is that?
GoPro. Yeah, you can get a better look at it. I'm going to end the video real quick.
Okay, good.
Thank you, everybody. I know you're listening to my dog conversation and everything else, but nobody else had any questions for the night, and we were just chit-chatting. So thank you for being here. Thanks for being patient with me and watching the video. I will see everybody on next Thursday at 5:30 Chicago time for our basic camera class. Have a great night. Happy shooting to you.